There are moments in life when silence becomes louder than sound, not because nothing is happening, but because everything is happening beneath the surface, too quiet to scream, too deep to run from. Ethan had always trusted his senses, his instincts, his ability to tell when something was off. But now, after Leia's disappearance, her withdrawal, and the vision they shared of Earth wrapped in networks of pulsating light, he found himself questioning everything, not just the world around him, but the very parameters of what counted as real, as measurable, as human. He spent the next week in isolation, unable to return to his old school, unwilling to go back to the apartment he once called home. Instead, he moved through the city like a shadow wearing a human skin, watching, listening, observing what no one else seemed to see. There were patterns everywhere, in subway announcements, in the blinking of streetlights, in the quiet synchronization of human movement during rush hour. But it wasn't until he stumbled upon the anomaly at precisely 4:32 and May the 17th of the month that the pieces began to align. It started with a power grid fluctuation he noticed on a conspiracy forum, a user claiming that a short, unexplained power surge was recorded in over 60 cities across the globe, all at the exact same minute. The thread was buried within hours, the user account deleted, but Ethan managed to retrieve a cached version. That same night, driven by something between desperation and instinct, he stayed awake with a frequency recorder he borrowed from an old college tech lab. At exactly 4:32 am, his screen lit up, not with sound, but with a wave, low and massive, too deep for ears to detect but unmistakable in its structure. It wasn't static, it was language, patterned, deliberate, and pulsing with intent. The signal protocol, he would later call it. Digging deeper, Ethan began tracing similar patterns in reports scattered across academic publications, declassified research, even unexplained anomalies in weather stations and wildlife behavior. The same timestamp appeared again and again, 4:32 UTC on the 17th, every month. Always the same cities. Always near dense population clusters, schools, hospitals, transit hubs, large apartment complexes, not random, not accidental. A networked pulse woven directly into the infrastructure of modern life, hidden in plain sight, like a ghost embedded in the circuitry of civilization. He visited one of the pulse epicenters, an abandoned research facility on the outskirts of town, officially shuttered for structural instability, but still quietly powered. The building hummed beneath his feet. Inside, he found nothing but dust, shattered glass, and one remaining server, inactive, until he connected it to a portable energy source. Then, the interface came alive. And the files, they were not meant for public eyes. Encrypted logs detailed a project called Eco-7, once under the Department of Neuroacoustics, later absorbed into a private multinational that no longer existed, or had renamed itself so many times its origin was untraceable. The reports were chilling in their precision. The signal, it said, was not meant to control thought. That would be primitive. It was meant to modulate frequency pathways within the brain, not to suppress emotion, but to reorient perception, gradually, subtly, until the host no longer recognized the difference between their own thoughts and the ones introduced through harmonic embedding. In layman's terms, the signal didn't tell people what to do. It taught them how to think differently, how to redefine what it meant to feel, to trust, to belong. After prolonged exposure, subjects became increasingly harmonic, a term used in the reports to describe individuals whose neural resonance aligned perfectly with the programmed frequency. They smiled more, slept better, became less anxious, less individual, more compliant. The most terrifying part, it worked. A line in one of the final reports chilled him more than any alien warning or dream ever had. After 18 months of protocol exposure, 71% of test subjects self-identified as no longer fully human, without prompt, suggestion, or fear. They welcomed the shift. They named it evolution, But something had gone wrong. The project's lead researcher, Dr. Mara Avail, noted unexpected divergences, clusters of humans who rejected the signal subconsciously, whose brains interpreted the harmonic frequency as an invasion. These individuals began showing side effects, memory distortion, time loss, even hallucinations of alternate realities. The reports labeled them fractured anchors, dangerous, not because they were unstable, but because they remained fully human, fully resistant, and could infect others with their refusal. Ethan closed the file. His hands were shaking. He wasn't just one of them. He was an anchor. And so was Leah. There was one final log, timestamped just weeks before the facility had gone dark. The signal has reached full deployment. Global coverage achieved. Resistance clusters remain, but are shrinking. Evolution is not a possibility. It is the baseline now. He backed away from the console as if it might explode. Because if this was true, then humanity was no longer the dominant species on Earth. Not because it had been overthrown, but because it had been rewritten. Not by force, but by design. And most terrifying of all, the world had accepted it. Not through surrender, but through relief. The signal had made people feel better. It had soothed the madness, quieted the wars, leveled the chaos. Who would resist such peace? Only those who remembered pain as part of freedom. Ethan stepped out of the building into the cold dawn, but the world no longer felt solid beneath him. Everything was vibrating, subtly, deeply, constantly. Trees, clouds, the bones in his body. He understood now why Leah had said he was nearing fracture. Why the man in the woods had told him they wouldn't wait forever. Why the janitor who never aged had warned him that curiosity could save or erase, because he was no longer an observer. He was the variable. The next signal pulse would come in 9 days. He had 9 days left to decide who he was, and who he would remain, before the next layer of awakening began. And this time, it would not be optional.